Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. Have you ever wondered how to build inclusive communities? Well, guess what? Whether you put your shoes on, two right feet, two left feet, or mix and match colors, we've got a great show for you. So get ready to wake up the inner giant. Oh. Well, good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris, and I'm here with Mr. Nicholas T. Smith, the author of The Giants and the Smalls, this wonderful book here.
Who can't see crap this morning
Yeah.
without his readers.
We got two wonderful Giants with their glasses on, and they're including me today too. So that's awesome. I wrote a little book called The Journey of Riches: Living the Paradigm of Kindness. Boom. And we co-created Wake Up with Giants TV, a tribe of giants and 12 journeys coaching. And now here we are, live and excited on a Sunday morning, ready to dive in and serve. We've got an SG group. What day is that, Nick, going on?
Well, let's see.
It's perfect.
Looks like we got a shout out going on, right? Yeah. Well, we've got SG 13, which is our Sum Gigante group, coming up on July 29th. So that'll go for 4 weeks. It's only $555. It's powerful. It'll teach you the 12 Journeys framework. This will be something that you'll carry for the rest of your life, and we really slow down with it. So if you've ever followed our work or seen the master classes, this is going deep on the 12 journeys, and I promise you it will shift the way you approach every challenge in your life. It'll create resilience. You'll bounce back from even the hardest things, and that's important, especially when we're working with transformation.
Yeah.
So
and you'll realize that it's okay to put on, two right feet or two mismatched shoes or whatever you want to do, right?
Whatever you want to do. We also have the tortoise's hair, so we can talk about that too.
I see that we have that in the background, so that's good.
We're going to show that for the next few weeks, but my mission is to have that in print by the end of the month, by the end of July. So that's a big commitment. I'm still doing the layout and the editing of the book, but we are so close. So close. It's a beautiful book. It's a little bit too long for me right now, so I'm trimming it down.
we like falling asleep or what? Like
it's
above the reading level.
Holy crap! It might put people to sleep. Parents will be like, "No, not that book."
We
pick another one.
This is the long one. We want the short version. So the kids
so I'm working on faster. That. Exactly. It's beautiful. The message is beautiful. The imagery is beautiful. This will be another transformational book like The Giants and the Smalls. But this one is all about self-love and self-acceptance, which I think right now is much needed, especially with what's going on in the world. People need to love themselves first, primarily, and then from there, they're able to love others more. And so we're trying to create that self-acceptance and self-love. It's not selfish. So I love that.
I agree.
I think that's it, man.
And we got Chris on too.
Hey, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Good morning.
Good to see you this morning.
Should we introduce our guest?
I think so. You ready?
I think so.
Let's do it.
Let's give it a shot. So welcome to another exciting episode of Wake Up with Giants TV. These texts are like huge, and I have glasses on. So today we're honored to have Vicki Abadesco, a true giant in the field of emotional education. For over 35 years, Vicki has been a passionate educator, mentor, and facilitator, leading transformative programs that have touched the hearts of thousands. Through her award-winning initiative, Soul Shop, Vicki has nurtured a generation of emotionally intelligent individuals who are building strong, inclusive communities. Her work is all about breaking down barriers and fostering empathy and understanding. So please join me in welcoming the incredible Vicki Abadesco. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here with you all. I just I love you both. Thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
thank you.
We love you too.
I can get rid of the glasses because all I need right here is the voice. Hear you. But I got to tell you, like my eyesight this morning is so blurry, unreal. It's been a minute. Well,
Yes. Yes.
Vicki, we like to dive into philosophy's journey, really exploring how you got to where you are. Get rid of all of us on the screen.
There we
You
go.
want some
Hey, I
help
got.
there, dude?
There we go.
Holy crap!
Hey, your reading isn't great, and
Get your
apparently my
hands,
button
yeah, get
pushing
your
is
hands off
slow.
the
Hold
controls,
on a sec.
dude.
I gotta. Ugh. Okay, now I'm ready. Ready,
We
set, go.
for those that are watching it, we will pull your comments up. So if you want to comment as we go, they show up across all of our channels. But Vicki, we try and dive into really exploring how to transform, because it's really, I think we get so stuck in our stories about who we think we are. And we have this history, we have automations and habituations, and that becomes our perception of reality. And that perception of reality affects our reality. And so we think it's true. And so we start living into that, and it's hard to break out of that. And we want to go back in your story to where you thought you were something, maybe even giving us some context of how you arrived at being that person in the world. And then there was likely some awakening moment that transformed you or woke you up to the potential that you really had in you. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Do you
totally.
have something in mind?
Yeah, one of the things that I was thinking about is, right, it's like we all have our journeys, right?
Yeah.
And all of our journeys are so personal, and there's so much about each of our lives that we can share and support others by sharing our journey. And then there's some things that are so personal, like our own internal, right, narrative that we live inside of. And sometimes we show up and people are like, "Oh, you're so amazing." All right. And then does our internal dialogue match how other people see us? Right. And sometimes people think, right, hold that place where they see more in us, right? Our potential, right?
Yeah.
More than we can see ourselves.
You're like, hold up, dude. If you only knew.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
know
would,
what goes
you
on
would,
inside of
yeah.
this
Yeah.
mess.
Right. And so I've had this interesting curiosity about, some of us who grew up with childhood trauma. Right. And that place of, like, for me, thinking about my life as a little person. And I was so very internal. My external environment had a lot of chaos, and that my little person system just, right, it was too much to manage. Right. So
Could
you
you
had
explain
violence,
to
right?
the readers, like,
Unpredictable.
or the listeners, could you quickly just explain the difference, like, in what is it, like, what's trauma to a child?
Yeah, so sometimes, right, trauma could be, it doesn't have to be like a big, crazy event. It could just be something that creates some hurt or harm with us that, one, are developmentally, our system as a little person actually can't handle.
They don't have
Right?
the
Because
right
we're not
tools
meant,
to cope
right?
or whatnot, right?
Yeah, so if, like, there's screaming, there's violence, there's right, something that feels scary, right? It's like our psyche has to manage that somehow, right?
Yeah.
And so in those moments, we create patterns
Mm.
of survival.
Yeah.
Oh, how do I handle, oh, my right, parents are screaming, someone's throwing something. Am I going to get hit? Right? So then my little person, right, is trying to figure out safety, safety. So we're always looking at our survival. It's one of the beautiful things about us as humans, right?
Yeah.
Our level of resistance, and we figure it out somehow. And so then how do we create patterns? Because we had figured it out.
Ooh, I
Right?
like
So
this. Yeah. I like this, and I want to hang here for a bit because
yeah.
this could be a breakthrough for people. So yeah, keep going
Yeah,
with that.
we
So
don't
these
even let you
patterns.
get into your story. We let
Uh-uh.
like, wait,
Yeah,
wait,
that's
wait,
right.
what?
Yeah.
Because this is the point, and I just want to just bring this forward too. It's like, it's one of the reasons I love working with young people, but it's
Yeah.
also the reason I love working with adults, because that thread is always there.
Yeah.
Right? It's like when I look at adults, I'm also looking at, like, the little Nick, the little Ryan.
Yeah.
Like, how those two are present right now. Like, I look at the two of you and I can see those little kids. I could really see those little
Yeah.
kids,
Yeah.
right? And so imagine if that's actually how we also looked at each other. Like, it's like when we're up against somebody, right? There's an argument, there's a disagreement. It doesn't have to be a big blowout or anything. It's like, oh, where does that start? Because whatever conflict I have with you, sometimes it is about what's happening between you and me, but sometimes it's not about you and me at all.
Yeah.
Right? There's a thread of what happened when I was a kid trying to protect myself from the screaming happening in the world. Oh, I shut down. Oh, I go inward. Oh, no one can come in. So then how do I then take that particular pattern and have intimacy and connection in my life as an adult?
So this is where I want to hang for a little bit is the creation of who we think we are. It's amazing the adaptability of the human, the mind, the body, the ability to adapt to anything. And we're not equipped. We don't know how to adapt to it in a healthy way. So we adapt to it still, which is incredible because the body just makes something up to help us survive. And we do survive. I mean, look at how many of us have survived our childhoods.
That's right.
And they say that neglect and trauma register the same in the body. There's no difference. It can't tell the difference between the two. And whether you were neglected or traumatized as a child, it's you developed coping patterns that worked for you at that time to get through that, but you carried those into adulthood. And in social contexts, they sometimes don't work. And then we think we're broken because we're using the same patterns we developed as kids in adulthood. And then we're judging ourselves as broken, as faulty, as unworthy, unlovable.
The way I am.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And so, can you tie your story into that and how you did that to you, and then how you learned to grow through that? Can you pull that in?
Yep. Yeah. So, all right. So, as a little kid, I was like really like protective, right? It was like, what's happening in my world right now?
Yeah.
Right. And it just felt so chaotic. And there was always something I had in me that was more like, what is this life? This can't be how the way this is how life is.
Yeah.
And right. So then I was very sad. I was really depressed as a kid, right? A lot of suicidal thoughts. Like, this is nuts. Who wants to be here if this is what life is? I just couldn't understand it. And so it was like, when I can think back to that little person, it was like, oh, some kind of something, right, was speaking to me more than my circumstance. And even though I wasn't quite sure what that was, right? So I grew up Catholic. And so then it's like, that was my frame of something bigger. But even then, inside of that, I knew that, what I believed in, or my connection, my spiritual connection, was something bigger than what was, that particular frame. And so when I was in middle school, I had a teacher that, looked at me and was just like, I don't know what's happening over there, but you've got there's some leaderships, there's something happening over there that it's more than what I see you showing yourself to be. And it was the first time that an adult had said something to me that had me, that honored whatever else I thought was happening in my own world. Right? And so then to think oh, is there something more than this crazy life that I feel like I have? Is there more? Is happiness possible? Is joy possible?
Some of that doesn't come sometimes for a very long time. So I mean, in a lot of cases, you're pretty lucky to have somebody like that to see that in you and say something at a younger age. It took me till I was like 39 years old to have somebody be like, "Hey, wake up,"
Yeah.
like here's what I see. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, this is how I've been living my life. And is there more? Is there better possibilities? So that's amazing.
Yeah, and thank you. I thanks for sharing that. And one of the, you see the sign behind me, right? You're amazing. So this is something we share with the thousands of kids that we work with every single day. And because of that story I just shared, this sign exists. Because every time we're in front of kids, we want them to know this about themselves, because they may not have an adult that is telling them these things about them.
Can I highlight too the importance of questioning? So in the book, there's a series of questions he asks. Why are there giants? How did they get so big? Can I do that? The power of questions is that you can't not answer them. And there, I wrote in my book, The Art of Accomplishment, questions over affirmations. Because affirmations, a lot of times we say these statements, we just don't believe them. We find, reasons why they're not true. But with questions, when we ask them properly, we start looking for solutions. Is that possible for me? How can I do that? If other people can do that, is that something that I could accomplish as well? So, that when you're asking these questions, then you've got what you've got behind you, that sign. The two mixed could show possibility to somebody, even kids. They're going to answer those questions, right?
Yes.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, and it's interesting because one of the activities we do with this is, and maybe I'll ask you all right now, right? So out of these, right, which is the one that you feel in this moment, you feel really good about? Like you are down with like, you're smart, you're powerful, you have what it takes, you're important, you can have a fun and happy life. So which one of those is like, oh yeah, I'm rocking that one right now?
You have what it takes for me, but Brian,
so say more about that. Yeah.
Mine's you can have a fun and happy life. It's a
awesome.
good personality thing probably too.
It matches.
Yeah.
The you have what it takes is, I've been teaching the 12 journeys for about 5 years. I've been on this journey with the giants and building the community for 15 years. And there are days that I wonder if I have what it takes. And days that I wake up and I doubt myself, days that I wake up and I wonder, what's this all for? And a statement like that, you have what it takes, that's something I believe and teach in the 12 journeys, is that we're already equipped to be giants. It's not something you become. It's Sunshine Hemmert, a friend of ours who's also a partner in our 12 journeys program. She said, that Nick, just to highlight here, something I've learned from you is that giants, you never become a giant. You just unbecome anything that makes you feel small. Right. So the having what it takes is, even people like us who are out there teaching it constantly still have our doubts, and we still have our wonderings. Am I just an imposter? Am I doing any good in the world? Right. And so that statement really hits home for me today, especially today.
Yeah. Ryan, you want to say anything about yours?
I've always, yeah. I'm a happy guy normally, so most of the time Nick knows that sometimes I'm not.
Yeah.
sometimes I can be the other side of that too. But that's really what I've been working on leaning into is just Ryan doing Ryan things. I mentioned it to you at the beginning. I'm just gonna be what I am, be weird and funny and happy as much as possible. And I find every time I go against that it's not as fun, it's not as happy, it's not what I really truly desire. So I've learned to lean into that, and from doing those things, I feel like the other things become more true for me as well that are on your board.
Yeah. And then that's the next question we ask the kids is, which one of these could you use some support with in this moment? And again, right, they're always changing. One day you're like rocking, I'm smart, and the next day you're rocking, right? Yeah. So then we ask the kids, so which one is it that you could use some support with, or maybe not feeling so much today? How would you answer that?
You are powerful for me.
Yeah, it was kind of a toss up between, like, smart is more like business degrees and background education and things like that for me, versus, and then the powerful is making sure that for me that it's like I am making that impact, and that people, take me not so seriously. I don't know if that makes sense too.
Hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Nick, what do you say about that one for yourself?
Well, I'll be vulnerable here. The
Yeah.
the last 6 months have been some of the hardest of my life.
Yeah.
And so the last month, especially, emotions are up right now. Um, I don't feel powerful. And so that is one that hits. Uh, that's one where, and this, Vicki, I think this is where it ties into community is to be able to come on here and share that. I'm not alone. And I think what we do is when we feel less than powerful, we isolate, and we have this desire to isolate. And I think that's where it ties into what you do is you build community around that.
Yeah.
And this is a chance for me to just be vulnerable. Is like life has been pretty shitty, challenging. That's my description of it. And I get that's my perception I'm holding of it. And from the being community, I could be shamed for even using such language, right? But that's where I'm at, and I'm okay that that's where I'm at. That's something that I've learned is it's okay for me to be there. So
Yeah.
I'm feeling less than powerful today.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And there's some people, including myself, that would say your vulnerability is your power.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
And, when we're so we're having this conversation in classrooms and with, hundreds of kids, right, in a room,
Yeah.
and they're sharing these same sort of things with each other. So when we talk about what it means to build community, right, it's like you're doing that right now. We're doing that right now.
Mm.
And we do it, right? It's like you say, like we do something, right? We feel hurt, we feel ashamed, we feel embarrassed. And then what do? We go and we hide,
Yeah.
right? Or we isolate. And when I even think about that particular action, like how young does that feel? Right. To
Oh,
me, there has such a like, I gotta run away and hide, right? Like there's just
well,
a part where like our little kid, like it's like we can't, it's almost like we can't bear it. But
yeah.
because so many of us were shamed when we were kids, right? So
Mm.
we learn at an early age to not let people see us be vulnerable or cry or share, right, our mistakes with each other. Right. And we learn at such an early age that we got to go deal with things on our own. So, one of the reasons we do this in groups with kids and have these conversations is to unlearn some of those practices. Oh, right. And so, when a kid says something very similar to what you just said, it's like, oh, I'm not feeling very powerful today. Oh, yeah. Right. Things are not well. When we get to one, show and teach and experience this thing called empathy. Right? It's like I'll say, how many of you can see how courageous Nick is being right now? And every little hand would go up, right? Our hands go up because we see that. And then you get a reflection,
Mm.
right, of your power, even in the moment when you're not feeling powerful.
Yeah. And Vicki, the when you ask, how young were you? That takes me back. I was 4 or 5 years old, at that point. So it takes me way back. It's like I learned early on to go isolate. I learned to go sit with the birds. My sister tells a story that I would take bread and I'd go sit under a tree for hours and wait for the birds to come. And I'd just hold my hand out there and wait for the birds to come and eat. And they would come land on my head and they would eat the food and fly away. And I would just sit in isolation. I would sit in quietness. That was my peace. I was taught early on, you don't show emotion, you go cry into the other room. And when you're done crying, you come back, or you get spanked for showing that emotion. Right. So you put that away. So that's where, and it's right at the surface today. So you learn to not show it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you do anyway. Right.
Yeah. And it's feeling that just that thread of that tenderness, right? For present day Nick, but also 4-year-old little Nick. Like I'm feeling that, right? It's like, I know, Ryan, you're feeling that. Like we're feeling that with you, for you.
I love that little buddy.
Yeah.
Little dude was a stud.
Right. And
He was
looking
the
at
very best
even,
that he could.
yeah, I mean, even that, right? That description of being out there with the birds, right? And your hand out, even at 4 years old.
Brian, you might have to lead the show here.
It's okay.
I'm here to learn.
I think that these are some of the best teaching moments, even live. Like nobody's expecting anything, Nick. So the greatest thing is to sit and to feel those emotions and to love little Nick and with what he was doing and what he had to go through and I often have to put little Ryan on my hand and tell him same thing, like thank you
Yeah.
thank you for doing the best that you possibly could. And when I slow down with that, because sometimes anger, like I should be further along, I should be past this, I should, all these shoulds, and then I start judging myself and shaming myself as such. And when I slow down, I really get into deep gratitude, because my little Ryan did a really great job for what tools he had, to try to keep me safe. And then as I grew older, I understood that, and you taught me this, Nick, is that operating system that worked then doesn't work as well now as an adult, and so we just have to upgrade. It was just an
We
upgrade.
we do. And Vicki, you know this from teaching kids and adults. I mean, this is for adults too, is that inner child, that programming that was there is so damn sticky.
Yes.
And it's amazing how much impact it has from such a young age that it still has. I'm 49 years old and it still has an effect on me today. That, I think of the human brain, and I want to speak to this a little bit. Hi, baby. Damn.
Yeah.
See, this is how you roll with life, right? Life is life, and this is what's present.
Yeah. Yeah, we could just stay right here with you. There's nowhere to go.
I appreciate this. I know all about the brain, and I know what it's like. People are going through stuff, and it's like, I'm not making shit up so I can fit in and so you'll accept me. It's what we're going through as adults goes all the way back, all of us. And when you realize the impact of programming at a young age, it's so impactful. They say during the first months of life, we're creating over 1 million synaptic connections a minute, and we're absorbing everything. So whatever's going on in our environment, that's, the traumas, the neglect, all of that has an impact, and we're taking that all in, and we're not pruning any of it. And so, and it's foundational to everything that follows. And so even in our older age, I see people, in their businesses. I'm comparing myself to them. And I wonder if what I do has impact. The community, talking about community, the word community means to have something in common. My community is some powerful people. I've got Ryan in my life. I got Andrea. my beautiful girlfriend who absolutely sees me.
Yeah.
People like you, the TUB community, the Giants community, like we're never really alone. So even though we go through hard things, we're surrounded by people who build us up. Just like right now, I'm no different from anybody else that's watching this, is that we have people around us that know what we're going through and then want to help us out of that. And the 12 journeys is really, it's evolved because of my own work. It's evolved because of the work Ryan's doing, right? Because we know exactly what it feels like to try and transform your life and still get stuck in old patterns and wonder, like, is this even working? Am I even making an impact? Does what I do matter? Do I matter? I ask the same questions.
Yeah.
Can you speak to me around that?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm loving this moment with you, with all of us, right? Because it's our own, right? We're each other's own reflection, right? And we can surround ourselves with the most amazing, incredible people, and right, it's our work, right? To what's still happening inside of our own internal dialogue of how we feel about ourselves, how we love ourselves, how we love ourselves, how we love that little one. And that's right. We are always creating. And in this moment, something powerful is being created through vulnerability and courage and connection and being seen and being witnessed, right? And being able to share truths, right? And so when we talk about, what's it mean to build community, build inclusive connections with people, like we're doing it, we are being it right now. This is what it takes. Right? And sometimes we get it twisted that, like, let me show I'm reaching this many people, I'm having this many impact.
Yeah, it's not that, right?
Thing, right? It's like, it's not right. It's like, yeah. And this. Right? So it's like, in this moment when you're feeling, what am I not feeling right now? I'm not feeling so powerful. And how do we get to be with that? And and isn't it interesting that maybe the power is in your tenderness, right? Maybe your power is in that 4-year-old.
I know, but we're taught not to show that. We're taught as men, especially. And maybe for women too, don't show your emotions. Don't show that you're struggling. Never, that ad, never let them see you sweat. I sweat like a motherfucker. Like, and if there are kids watching this, I'm sorry for that. But like, it's life has its challenges, and the people that we serve in our community in the tribe of giants and the 12 journeys, I mean, they're going through their own version of it, and we can relate as much as we can from where we are. But we're not going through what they're going through. And so our ability to step back from that and not be attached to it is where the power comes in. You're able to hold space and sit here with me. I'm feeling what I'm feeling. You're not feeling the same thing I'm feeling, but you have empathy for what I'm feeling. You have compassion for what I'm feeling in those moments where I might not have compassion for myself over what I'm feeling. Right.
Yes.
That's the power of community.
Yes.
And that's something that has been in my toolbox for the 12 journeys. We have our 6th journey is the tool of empowerment, which is about creating community. It's about creating tools so that you don't backslide in your lows. Yeah, I'm feeling low today.
Yeah.
But I don't have to go self-sabotage because of it. Right?
Yeah. And there's also something about, it's like when one person gets to say, oh yeah, I'm feeling low, it gives so much permission. Because again, sometimes we come into these spaces and we got to think we're got to be like, I'm a giant, or something like that. But that this is what a giant looks like or feels like, right? And all of what we're talking about is exactly, yes, and this too. Right? This is what it means. Like, yeah, I can be a giant because you know what? I can show my tears. I can show my vulnerability. I can say when the shit is tough. That is being a giant.
Yeah, that is. That's the truth right there. And playing small is simply, hiding that, pretending like it's not there, toxic positivity, pretending like we're happy when we're really not. Like to me, the giant's journey is acknowledging, like, I am where I am today. And it's okay that I am where I am today. And it's okay that my life was what it was. That's not a statement of resignation. It's not a statement of I'm going to stay here or quit or give up on my life. It's simply, this is where I'm at on the map. This is what I get to work with today. This is the perception I'm having. And I'm going to continue to step into what I perceive to be my greatness, right? My potential.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there are times it's not going to feel so great.
Yeah. And you have a community around you who's not going to let you do anything less.
Right.
Right. It's like, I think that's all part of it.
Yeah.
Is that, okay, we surround ourselves with people who uplift us, who remind us when we forget that we're any one of these things. Right?
Why do we forget so often too?
We forget so much, right? It's like a memory problem. What's going on?
Like Alzheimer's. Like,
holy crap! It totally is, because you can be going along. Okay, I have a shirt that says, "I'm not bipolar. I'm just becoming a giant." Because you'll be like on a high and then on this super low. And it's like, no, that's part of it. That's part of the healing, because I use the infinity symbol now in our teaching, because the center of that infinity symbol is the present moment. And the left side is the past, and the right side is the future. And we are always looping back to that present moment. But there are times we're going to go into the past and we get stuck in a loop over there and we stay there. And that's okay. Like you might stay there for a little bit, but when you come out, you come into the present moment. Now you can step into your future and create. And here's the challenge, is that when we step into that present moment, many of us judge ourselves so harshly over being in the past that we can't stay present. We loop right back into the past and shame ourselves and guilt ourselves over being there. Yeah. But that's not the goal. The goal is to come back into the present moment and just be okay. Like, it's okay you went there. It's okay that you went back. We have to go back into our shadows to heal.
Absolutely.
There's no way out of it, right?
Yeah, right. There's a saying, like our past is always present.
Yeah.
And it's like, and how do we have enough awareness to know, like, oh, I am not in the present moment right now, right? I am talking to you from something that happened way back.
Yeah.
Right? The last relationship, the last time I had this kind of argument, the last time I talked to, right? And so it's like, how do we stay aware even in those moments that am I being present right now? Because we can even notice, right, our tone, our pacing of our voice, how our face looks. Like, sometimes I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm being 8 years old right now, right? I think I'm having an argument or a conversation with you, but my voice just went a little higher. I start to move in a particular kind of way, right? And I'm like, oh shit, sorry, my 5-year-old's talking to you right now, not my present day person.
Yeah. You've overwhelmed me, because I'm 5 years old and you asked me to be the CEO of my life, and I'm not doing very well. Right. And I just want to cry. And so, it really is that, because, and it's gotta be okay. It gives permission. What vulnerability does is it opens up the willingness to be wounded, And, being vulnerable allows people and gives permission for them to be woundable, or wunderbar, wunderbar. But that is, Edith Eger talks about expression as the opposite of depression. And things like doubt, I've always wondered, what is doubt? If I have doubts, is that a negative? Is that the opposite of faith and trust? And one thing I learned from my studies is that doubt is not the opposite of faith. Certainty is. And doubt is just a facet of trust and faith. You don't know what's going to happen next. So we're all stepping into the unknown constantly, and you're going to have doubts, and that's not a negative thing or the opposite of trusting. It's actually a facet of it. So
which
certainty
brings up like fears and all the stuff, like in your past, you're trying to draw on something, right?
Yeah. And so you're going to go through it. And so what I'm going through even in this show right here is just a demonstration. It's not for show. This is really going on in my life. Like it's a demonstration of what we go through constantly, many of us. And we wonder, am I broken? I should know this by now. You know, who am I to do great? That we have questions. We doubt ourselves. But doubt is right alongside faith. It's parallel, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you
Yeah. And
speak
I'm
to that?
wondering too about, there's that saying that um, our greatest wounds are our greatest gifts.
Yeah. And suffering or perseverance is the reward of suffering.
Mm,
Yeah,
mhm.
that's another one. But
Yeah.
go ahead with your thought.
Yeah, I
Continue.
mean, so I was just thinking about, right, it's like for so many of us, right, it's like, where's that point of where our greatest wound, if our greatest wounds are our greatest gifts,
Hmm.
where are we in any moment inside of our own leadership? Am I leading from the wound?
Hmm.
Am I leading from the gift?
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
It brings awareness, right? And for me, like awareness, if you're aware of what you're doing, then there's something to do. You can make changes, adjustments, you can grow. But when you're not aware to your behavior and how you're being, there's nothing to do,
Yeah,
you
Yeah.
know. And the growth, I think, also halts or slows
yeah,
down, or maybe even reverts back to a 5-year-old self, a 7-year-old self, or whatever. And that's who's leading the conversation. When you become aware of those things, for at least for me, I really appreciate it when somebody calls me out. I don't I don't love it sometimes. Lindsay Cap and also Sanika, uh, when we were in Birmingham, had a conversation with them, and it was loving but very direct.
mm,
And I asked for it, and they
mm,
gave it to me very, very straight, but so straight that it stung just a little bit for just a minute.
yeah,
But then what it did is it was like pulled me out of how I was playing in some areas in my life. And now through commitment and looking at it and getting committed back to myself, seeing how I was being in those different moments and those different facets in my life, I was like, oh my gosh, I was leading from here, from fear, from judgment, from worry, from doubt, and from other things that little Ryan used to do.
yeah,
And then I was like, oh, okay, well, now I'm aware of that. Let's shift into the Ryan that I know I am,
yeah,
the
yeah.
fun, the playful, the committed, the excited, the guy that creates miracles and magic, that I can create magic everywhere I go, kind of a Ryan.
Right. I just want to ask this question because I think this is on point to what we're talking about, which is where was that moment for you where maybe you couldn't handle the feedback? Because
Oof.
I think this is really key to what we're talking about when we're saying, part of what we're talking about is also how we grow ourselves up.
Hmm.
So there was probably a moment where you probably, one, would not have ever asked anybody for feedback,
Yeah.
or two, you wouldn't have been able, something inside wouldn't have been able to withhold it.
Hmm.
So I'm
There's
curious.
yeah, no, there was the like uh, I'll have to sit with that to pinpoint exact moments, but probably before I met Nick, before I started diving into coaching. I've always been into personal development and growth, but in my mind, it was more of the stuff that Nick talked about. It's like you don't sweat and hustle and grind and do this stuff, and
Be a
and
man,
be a man. Don't go
brother.
backwards and look at the younger self. Weak. Uh, you
Yeah.
know, I imagine it. They all talk like the Hulkster or
Yeah. Macho Jim,
Macho Man,
Macho
Randy
Randy
Savage.
Savage, right? Brother.
Yeah, got to snap into a Slim Jim.
Yeah.
Um, but as soon as I met Nick and started experiencing this world, it it helped me start to open up and see myself differently and understand I don't have to judge myself. And then as I got coaching and as I had mentors in my world,
Mhm.
it softened me internally. I don't even know, but my heart softened. I was able to take more of that, and it's not criticism. It's just an awareness, and it's a loving awareness. Truthfully, having Sanika and my Lindsay, I call it Lindsay Cap. She just like, I mean, it was loving, but it was so direct, and I take it
And
as,
Lindsay is short enough that she gets right up into the throat,
yeah. I mean, she's
you
like
know?
armpit height, like she gets it. She's like down there, and she just whack, she just whacked me, and but what it was is it was actually true love. It was, wake up, this is how you're playing, and I was ready for that. Now if this is new, you might not want to like give a punch to the jugular to somebody. You probably want to do it more like Vicki, and do it a little bit more soft and a little bit more gentle and loving, and kind, and massage it along until you're ready for some of those things. I appreciate all aspects now, where I can feel the love, get into the emotion. But I also sometimes just need somebody to grab me by the shoulders, like Steve Hardison did to Chris Doris in
Mhm.
in the TBOLIT NFL. If you haven't
Mhm.
watched that, go to TBOLIT NFL and on YouTube and watch Steve Hardison shake Chris Doris and wake him up to how he's playing in life.
Mhm.
And sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need a nice big long hug and a long cry too.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that was a long way to answer that, Vicki, but
Yeah.
it's been about a 5-year journey for me,
Mm.
6-year journey.
Yeah. I have a call with Lindsay tomorrow morning, so I'm gonna be ready
Yay!
for it. I'm
You
like, come
tell
on, girl,
you
let's
tell
go.
her.
Sorry, man, we put
Mine
you on
says,
guard.
yeah. You tell her.
So, Vicki, just pulling this all together
Yeah.
is where you started. Is that we have traumas, we have neglect, in childhood especially. It's very important to, if we can, teach kids these tools so that they're not dealing with it in adulthood. But if they never got it in childhood, we can still do it in adulthood. And there's a level of patience when you think of children and their development, up until the age of, I think it's 0 to 7, you don't prune anything.
Mhm.
And at a million synaptic connections a minute for the first few months of life, and then during that stage you are truly absorbing everything. And from 7 to 13 you start pruning, and from 13 to 25 you start reaching cognitive, at 25 you reach cognitive decline, and you start really pruning out stuff, and you get anchored into who you think you are. But neurogenesis and plasticity and the ability to change ourselves exists for our entire life, up until you die. It never stops. And so
Yeah.
that ability to change is always there, but it might take a little more effort. It might take a little more time. And so there's a patience and a perseverance that has to exist in adulthood that didn't have to be there when we were children.
Yeah.
And so in adulthood, we get to be a little more patient with ourselves, because it could take a while. This has been a 15-year plus journey for me, just on the Giants alone, to go from talking to Steve Hardison back in 2009 to where we are today. And I'm not done. We're
Yeah.
not done here.
Yeah.
So
And that
can
timeline
you
is
talk
much
about that?
longer too, though, right? It's not just 15 years, right? You've been right.
Yeah.
Your journey. I mean,
Oh yeah.
you'd be the youngest 15-year-old I know, but I'm just,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just saying, your journey
Yeah.
is much longer than 15 years, and there's also an invitation that it's also beyond that,
Yeah.
right? It's like who we are. It's generational. It's ancestral.
Right. Right.
Right. And
Right.
so who we are
Yep.
in this moment is not my makeup of, yes, my family, my parents who immigrated from the Philippines, and their
Mhm.
parents and their parent, right? It's like who we are in this moment right now isn't just us and what I've done in the
Ooh,
years of
yeah.
my life on this planet. And sometimes we forget that too, right? It's like, so, right, and then our world becomes even smaller. It's
Mm.
me and this issue, right? And so, right, this is why we need each other to, one, look up. Oh, there's other people here. I'm not alone,
It's weird. I,
right?
I kind of read that in the book you wrote, Nick. The Giants are
Mm.
the smallest. Huh.
Yeah. Well, and the metaphor of that, of a community, helps you lift your chin when your chin is down. They help lift that up and say, it's okay. You're okay. You're going to
Yeah,
be okay. We
yeah,
got you. When you don't have you, we got you.
yeah, yeah. And then what it takes for us to really get that and receive that.
to receive it. This, okay, we need to hang here for a minute. The receiving. Andrew Huberman, he's a neuroscientist. He talks about gratitude, and I love this because this really shifts things for me. Is that gratitude isn't about giving. Gratitude, the chemical responses that come from it, comes from the receiving from others or the witnessing of receiving from others. And receiving is so key because, you know, my girlfriend frees up. This is a stupid little thing. Andy, we're driving up to Park City yesterday, and the cup holder is filled with her soda, and I'm drinking mine. I don't have the place to set it. It's not an issue. I can hold it. Well, she opens up, she moves hers into her lap so that I can put my soda there. And I'm like, you don't have to do that. I declined her gift, right? I'm like, no. And I'm rejecting the receiving of this gift that she's giving me. And so I'm denying her of the feelings that she would get by giving me that. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, because knowing what I know, I'm like, okay, I'm doing exactly that. So I put my soda into it's a little thing, you know, it's this little thing, but we so often like swat away the givings that people are giving us and say, no, you know, you don't need to do that for me, or no, I'm not worthy of that. No, it's not a big deal. But it's their way of giving. And if we deny it by not receiving it, we're denying that powerful response that shows up in their body by our receiving.
Yeah. And if you can notice that, what you consider a small thing,
Yeah.
what are the big things that you're doing that you're not even aware of?
Right.
Right. It's like it's in those small moments that actually are not so small.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's where we see like, oh, this is that neural pathway of me rejecting or batting away. So it's already there. So if I can change that here, then our eyes and our sight gets to see the other places where we may be doing that.
Yeah.
And I love that other part of the other side of, oh, what occurs for someone else when they're trying to give to us and we reject.
Yeah.
Right? So then what happens for them about like, oh, they don't want my love. Oh, they don't want my help. So what are we teaching them about how to love us and how to care for us?
Oof. Yeah. 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 That, you know, when I think it's Eckhart Tolle said that gratitude is the foundation of all abundance. Mm-hmm. And if we're rejecting that, right, we're really rejecting the abundance. I mean, that isn't a symbolism of abundance. There's more than enough room in this car for your soda, right? Kind of a thing. Might be a small thing, but it's scalable. It's a fractal of the bigger thing.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about the work Byron Katie.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the things when I was steeped in her work and at her school, and done a lot of workshops with her, and the thing that stood out in one moment was she was talking to people who've had abuse in their life, whether current day or as a child. And, you know, she would say things that were very controversial, like, you know what the best thing about abuse is it's over. Mm. And what would stick with me is, and, you know, what I heard her say is like, oh, how do I continue to abuse myself from the memory? How many times do I play over my abuse? So now who's abusing me? Is it the person? But it's really me and my thoughts.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
All right. So it's a similar thing about like, oh, how do we stay awake enough to get like what I'm doing, that it's not like, oh, I'm a victim of all of these different things, that I actually have some power, that I can actually manage my own thoughts. Yeah. Can I stop watching the replay of someone hurting me? Right. And shift that to a different picture too. Accepting when somebody wants to give me the cup holder, right? Accepting when somebody says, I'm amazing. Accepting when beautiful gifts are given to me, a friendship, of a
Nick,
hug.
you're powerful. You're one powerful
Thank you,
dude.
I'm receiving that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I see that too, Vicki, when the power of acknowledgement, the power of acknowledging another human being, and Ryan's master at this is it brings up in them. It brings up in them a confidence, a love, it just like that feels good, but also for the person giving that, witnessing that, receiving of that brings up similar emotions in them. Right.
Yeah.
So it's very rewarding. The dopamine, the serotonin, the oxytocin, all the nerdy stuff. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
That our
Yeah.
bodies do.
Yeah. And I want to share this quick little story.
Yeah.
And I tell this story in my TED Talk that I do. But it's about a little girl. Oftentimes we get calls from schools saying, we got a problem, we got a bully, can you come and help us fix the situation? So, I never want to know about the kid. It's like, we just want to go in and love the kids, not, fix one bad kid, right? Which is what they're trying to tell me in an elementary school, by the way. Okay. So anyway, we're doing this assembly. We're talking about feelings. We ask if there's anybody who wants to share what's in what we do a metaphor of our emotional balloon where we keep the feelings we don't know what to do with. So this one little hand goes up and the whole room turns, fourth and fifth graders. And I can tell this is the kid. This is the problem, the quote unquote problem kid. So we asked this little girl, she wants to come up and share. She comes up to the front of the room and we ask her, sweetheart, what is in your balloon? And this little girl, little tears in her eyes. Right? And she says, oh, I lost my best friend. She's crying. And nobody knows who her best friend is because everybody doesn't like this kid. Right? They're the bully. And so then she says through her tears that her grandmother died. Her best friend. So in that moment, the whole room goes quiet. We're talking about 100 fourth and fifth graders. The whole room goes quiet. And then I ask them, how many of you can see how her pain and how she lost her grandmother? And every little one of those hands goes up. How many of you just learned something different about her that you didn't know? All the hands go up. So moments before, there was a label, there was a judgment, there was an assumption, there was a way of treating and being with this little girl that then changed to something else. Compassion, empathy, acceptance, understanding. So we had her share a little bit about her grandmother, what she loved, what she missed about her. We asked, was there anybody in the room who could help her, that if they saw her doing something hurtful on the playground, that they would help her? Again, all the hands went up. We asked her to pick 3 people to come up who they would be the special support people. She picked those, and again, something different changed. Right? So when we take away the judgments, those assumptions, then love gets to show up, care gets to show up. And that entire room and that entire school shifted because now there is more understanding. So imagine us as that little kid where we get misunderstood. We misunderstand ourselves. We misunderstand each other. So then there is no love. There is no acceptance. There is no inclusion, right? There's just judgment, exclusion. You have to be over there. You have to be over there. Let's punish you. Let's bench you. Let's suspend you. So, right. So I think one of the things we're saying here is like, oh, how do we love ourselves? How do we drop in, remember each other, remind each other when we forget, right? And create communities that have this kind of love, acceptance, and care and understanding.
Yeah. I mean, if nobody else had joined us today, if it was just the 3 of us, right, that would have been community. We would have had something in common here. If it was 2 of us, we would have had something in common here. We've got, the people that are watching today, and we've got our tribe of giants, and we have the ultimate coach community, and you're talking thousands, tens of thousands of people that are impacted by this message. And our vision and mission is to impact 1. If we can impact 1 today, that is perfect, by 1%. Yeah, hopefully whoever's watching this got impacted by 1% today. And
I did.
Vicki, I, I can see that. I appreciate that. And Vicki, the work that you're doing with kids, especially, we're all just kids. We just have grown up bodies, and we're all trying to make it in this world with the programming that we had as kids, and our bodies grew up, but sometimes our emotions and our minds didn't.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing, your work that you're doing, is as vital for adults as it is for kids. And thank God you're able to reach these kids when they're young, so that they have some foundation for when they're older, right? Yeah. And for the adults, it's not too late. If you're breathing, you can get out of bed in the morning. Your brain is wired for this.
Yeah.
It's not too late. We can transform. It might take a little bit longer. You might have to persist and be resilient, bounce back. And that's what we teach. That's what we teach you how to do. And Vicki, that's what you teach people how to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, yeah, beautiful. Is there anything before we wrap up here, anything that you're impressed upon to share with the person across the screen from you? That's not me and Ryan.
Yeah, I love their conversation today. And I'm in this moment. It's, what we all have a little kid that needs to be loved and cared on. And so what can we all do today to love on those little kids of ours?
Yeah.
And that's where, to me, I always envision it as like, reaching my little hand out and just walking along, right? Because it's like we're growing ourselves up, and those places where we've been hurt or traumatized, we get frozen there. It's part of also trauma.
Yeah.
Right? And so we need a little hand, right, to help guide us up so that we're not stuck in those places. So again, part of that's our own, how we love on ourselves, and also to get the support so that little kid can grow up out of that trauma to be able to create the magic and miracles and fun. It's one of the reasons why it's not like you have a fun and happy life. It's you can have a fun and happy life.
Beautiful.
Because the possibility is always there.
I love that. I want to do a shout out. Chris Morrison's been on the show here, commenting, and Chris has a children's book. Chris, if you'll drop a link to that in the comments here, that we want to serve you with that, because that is a book also similar to what we're doing here, The Giants and the Smalls, the up and coming Tortoise's Hair. Chris has released a powerful book that helps kids to see their way of being early on, which I think is impactful and needs to be shared. So if we can serve you, Chris, by having you drop the link in the comments, that would be, beingkids.org is his website. Go check that out. Support him. Here's another thing, just we love this show. Like, we love coming on this show. And as a ask and a petition to you that are watching, if you feel called upon to support this show and sponsor it in some way, want to donate, want to sponsor our books, and you feel like that speaks to you, we'd love for you to do that. And it's not a requirement of being here. We want to show up anyway. And so that would serve us to be able to serve more people. And Vicki, we're just deeply honored to have you on here as well. What you shared today, it hit me. Like, I feel a little selfish because I needed you today. Thank you.
So welcome. It was perfect.
Yeah.
It was absolutely perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan, do you have some final thoughts here?
I do. Well, first of all, Nick, she's right on time, and you are too. And so there are no accidents. I just want to remind you, I know somebody that tells me that all the time. His name's Nick Smith. I don't know if you've met him. He's pretty dang powerful. Yeah. The dude is one of my heroes in life. He is my giant.
Thank you.
He is my giant. So, and Vicki, I don't know that I was ready for this either. Like, and yet I really was. And I'm sitting here and I love that you work with kids. That is my favorite spot to work with, and because I think I see the kid in every person. I call it seeing their giant sometimes when they can't see it themselves, and it's really their their innocence and their playful side, and who they really are at their core. And there's nothing more pure than going back to childhood.
Yeah.
And so this has been just uh, magical. This
Mm.
has been pure magic for me. Thank you for all the work that you do, and um, don't stop. Whatever you're doing, please do not ever stop. I don't know if you ever have plans to stop, but you can't now. You have to keep going for eternity. So, so that for me, it's also that the people that haven't gotten to experience the miracle of Vicki get to,
Mm.
and that the young kids now that they'll have those empowerment tools. It will radically shift their lives. They won't even know some of the things that we've gone through, and when they do come up, because life does happen, they'll
Yeah.
know what to do in those moments, or at least be more equipped to do so. So thank you for who you are in the world, and love you, appreciate you, and honor you today.
Thank you. I
Thank
love you
you.
both. Thank you.
Love you too. Everybody that's watching, thank you for being a part of this. Like we always say, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're right on time. You're doing what you need to be doing. Trust it. Keep stepping. We're here to support you in that. We appreciate your comments and your sharings. If you know somebody that would benefit from this show particularly, share it with them and tell them why. And if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do that. We could use all the subscribers we can get. And we're working on growing that channel to reach as many people as we can. So go make it a giant day. We love you, and we will see you in the next episode.
Love you too.